Planning a trip to Disneyland with your toddlers? This is your complete land-by-land guide to Disney California adventure. The best rides, shows, and character experiences, plus where to use Lightning Lane and where to skip it. But first, hi, welcome to Jetstream Adventures. My husband and I love traveling pre-kids, but once we brought kids into the picture, we found travel to be a lot more challenging. I created Jetstream Adventures to help parents who want their family vacations to be joyful, not stressful. So if that's you, hit subscribe and stick around. Also, give this video a like and comment below any Disneyland questions you have. I'm actually getting ready to wrap up this Disneyland series here on YouTube and podcasts, so I'd love to hear any questions before we wrap it up. And while this series is coming to a close on YouTube and Spotify, I am always talking about all things Disney parks and cruises on Instagram and TikTok, so be sure to give us a follow there. And with that, let's head into Disney California Adventure Park. The first land that you walk into when you enter Disney California Adventure Park is Buena Vista Street. This is the equivalent of Main Street USA in Disneyland Park. If you missed it, I did post a counterpart to this video on Disneyland Park. I'll link it up here, and I'll also link it at the end so you can watch. Buena Vista Street is going to be mostly shops and restaurants. I will point out that the fountain is a great place to get a photo. Remember, if you get Lightning Lane Multipass, you have PhotoPass included there for free. So stop by, get some pictures with the photographer. Another toddler-friendly spot I'll point out is, of course, ice cream. Clarabelle's Hand Scoop Ice Cream is going to be your hard ice cream that you can get in cones, sundaes. This is also a great place to stop during rider swap if you have parents riding Guardians of the Galaxy and Credicoaster, which we'll get into all of that. But just keep in mind that's a great ice cream stop. Right next to Clarabelle's is Fiddler, Pfeiffer, and Practical Cafe. This is going to be your Starbucks in Disney California Adventure. It does not take mobile order, but I find in my personal experience when I've gone to Disneyland that this location tends to be a lot less crowded than the Starbucks in downtown Disney and the Starbucks location in Main Street USA in Disneyland Park. So don't be afraid to stop here if that's the way that you're coming into the park. Caffeine is very important as a Disney parent. I get that. So I will be pointing out caffeine. There is a sit-down restaurant located in Buena Vista Street, Carthay Circle Restaurant, and a partnering lounge that's next to it, Carthay Circle Lounge. This is going to be a little bit of a fancier eating location and not the most to keep your toddler entertained. There are going to be some better options if you want a sit-down meal that I'll be pointing out later. But for now, let's turn left and head down to Hollywoodland. The most important thing that you can do as a toddler parent in Disney California Adventure is the Disney Junior Dance Party. This is an absolute cannot miss event for your toddlers. Honestly, you're probably going to do it more than once. Over the summer, it had a Mickey Mouse Clubhouse theme, and right now for Halloween, they're doing Mickey and Friends Trick or Treat. So because of these limited time shows and how popular they are, I would plan on looking at the show times ahead, which I'll post them here. And while I never recommend making like a super detailed list of what you're going to do minute by minute, I would definitely pick out a time for the Disney Junior Dance Party that coordinates with your meals, what time you're planning on getting into the park, generally what land you'll be in when, so you can make sure that you get into the show. I do recommend lining up for the show at least 20 minutes early, getting your stroller parked, getting your kids out, because they do get pretty crowded. It's not something where if the show starts at 10:45, you can swing in at 10:43. You're going to have to wait for the next one. We actually ended up not being able to see the Disney Junior Dance Party the last time that we went because we weren't planning ahead and we kept trying to swing in last minute and the show was already at capacity and we just weren't planning on being around that area. So yeah, I would definitely recommend planning ahead for that one. What I love about the Disney Junior Dance Party is that it's indoors, it's air conditioned, and it's not a typical theater where they have seating. It's just all open, flat, so your kids can participate and dance around and run around. It's so great to let your kids out of the stroller and not just be going from ride to ride to ride, to give them some time to wiggle it out, interact with the characters. It's a must do. I can't emphasize that enough. Also, a must do in Hollywoodland is Monsters Inc. Mike and Sulley to the Rescue. This is a must do because it's going away in early 2026. Part of Hollywoodland is being removed to make way for the new Avatar Land. So the Mike and Sully ride will be closing in early 2026 and then construction will begin. So if you're wanting to ride the Monsters Inc. ride, which is super fun, it's a kid favorite, I would definitely recommend prioritizing that. It does take Lightning Lane, and the Lightning Lane reservations don't tend to fill up quickly. So it's something that you can hit later in the day. You can typically get a reservation within 10 to 15 minutes at most, if not right at the time that you're making the reservation. As far as dining, I feel like Schmoozies tends to be kind of controversial. I've heard great things about Schmoozies. I've heard not so great things about Schmoozies. I actually had a really great mocha frappuccino from Schmoozies one morning. I wasn't planning on getting it, but we just ended up in Hollywoodland in the early morning and I needed, again, a caffeine fix. So I got a mocha frappuccino there and it ended up being really good. So I had a good experience there. They're going to have smoothies, milkshakes. They also have alcoholic beverages. Keep in mind, while Disneyland Park is a dry park, they only serve alcohol at the sit down restaurants. Disney California Adventure is not. So they do serve alcohol at the quick service restaurants and the carts that you can buy and carry around the park. That's the major difference between Disney California Adventure and Disneyland Park. Heading around the corner is Avengers Campus, which is a toddler favorite. There are some great options in there for your little ones. Avengers Campus is home to Web Slingers, a Spider-Man adventure, and this is one of my kids' favorite rides. It's fun because it's interactive. You are helping Spider-Man catch his little Spidey bots that have gone rogue. I think they're called Spidey bots. I'm not like a big Marvel person. I love like Star Wars. I love like all the classic Disney movies, but I am not like super into Marvel. So with Disney having acquired it, I'm just not super into it. So sorry if I messed that up. I think they're called Spidey bots. Anyways, you actually like web sling and it's an interactive game where you earn points so you can compete as a family. It's so fun. The kids love, even if they're not hitting anything, just, like doing the web slinging motion. It's a must do for sure. This is a Lightning Lane ride and it's a Lightning Lane reservation that does fill up quickly. So at least one morning of your trip that you're starting in Disney California Adventure, I would recommend reserving web slingers first. Also, in that building, Spider-Man does live shows throughout the day where he's actually swinging from the top of the building. We've not purposefully stood there and watched it, even though it does happen at planned times during the day. We've just kind of walked by as it was going on, and our kids loved seeing Spider-Man up there actually riding on his webs. It's just, it is really magical. It's cool to see. There are also a lot of opportunities for character interactions, just organically walking around with the Marvel characters. Again, I'm not super into all of them, but I know like a lot of the Guardians of the Galaxy characters are out and about walking. There's like Thor, Ant-Man, Iron Man. You might see you walking around. What's cool about Adventures Campus is that it is expanding and there will be 2 new rides coming in. So there is a little bit of construction going on in Adventures Campus right now. It'll be exciting to see those new rides. As far as dining, Pim Test Kitchen is a great quick service spot to stop by for lunch or dinner. It's based on, I think it's Pim particles, where they're like shrinking things and making things bigger. So the menu is your typical food items, but there's always a twist on them because there's something that's like super big or super small. So your kids will have a lot of fun ordering off of that menu. And then next door to that in the PIM Tasting Lab, there's a lot of fun cocktail creations that adults can enjoy. So whether or not you stop to eat in Pimtest's kitchen, the tasting lab is a great place to stop if you're looking for a drink. The other ride in Avengers Campus right now is Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout. Now, if you're familiar with the history of Disney California Adventure at all, DCA has gone through a lot of renovations over the years. It originally was founded to be a love letter to the state of California, and every land was simply an aspect of California. So this tower was originally the Tower of Terror, just California's version of it that's in Florida in Hollywood Studios. When they rethemed this land to be Avengers Campus, they redid the ride and gave it a Guardians of the Galaxy theme. And Guardians of the Galaxy was actually a series that I did watch. What's so cool is that it actually fits really well into the storyline that I forget the guy's name. I'll post it here. But there's this like collector guy that collects all these different things, and the Guardians of the Galaxy get snatched by this collector. So I'm sorry, I'm so bad with Marvel. I'm bad at explaining it, but it does fit perfectly into the storyline if you're into Guardians of the Galaxy. What I didn't realize though, as someone who grew up going to Disney World and then only went to Disneyland as an adult, which was kind of disappointing to me, is that the Tower of Terror ride in Hollywood Studios in Disney World in Florida, it is an elevator shaft that goes up and down, but on certain floors, it also takes the elevator out of the shaft and you ride around. And then it goes back into the shaft and then you go up and down. That's not the case in California's Tower of Terror, now Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout. It is simply an elevator shaft that goes up and down. And it has a screen on different floors that plays out this storyline. And there's also a pre-show. That was a little disappointing to me because I was excited, having watched the movies, to see this play out. And I thought we would actually be able to like go into the building and like see the different aliens and stuff like that. But that's not the case with Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout. It's just you're on an elevator and there's screens of different videos that you're watching. I say this as a warning because that was just kind of a letdown for me. The first time we went to Disneyland, it was during Halloween time. And for Halloween, they have an overlay that is just after a certain time in the afternoon. I think it's 4 p.m. I'll put in text what it is to let you know. But it's called Monsters After Dark. And it's like all the aliens are let loose and wreaking havoc in the collector's house. And I was so excited to see all of that. But then it was just like screens. So that was a little bit of a letdown for me. It's hard to get a Lightning Lane reservation. And because there's a pre-show and everything, if you're doing rider swap with parents, it takes a while to get through. And yeah, I just kind of felt like it was a waste of time. I wouldn't recommend dedicating rider swap time to that. There's another ride that I think is absolutely worth it for rider swap. I'll get to that when we get to that land. All of that to say, I wouldn't really recommend dedicating time to Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout. There is a 40-inch height requirement, although my 4-year-old is meeting the 40 inches height requirement, and we didn't even bother with her with that ride because the joltiness of the up and down and the scariness of the storyline, we just kind of felt that it wasn't of interest to her. So when I talk about rider swap, I think that's really going to be your only option if you have toddlers, is parents riding it during nap time, during a time where you're taking a break from things. If you have no idea what I'm talking about with rider swap, I have another video that explains lightning lanes and how to rider swap, so I'll link that up here and I'll also link it in the notes. Right around the corner from Avengers Campus is Cars Land. When I heard there was an entire land dedicated to Pixar cars in Disney California Adventure, I was kind of like, eh. I I never would have thought that the movie Cars, it's not a land I would have requested. It's not an idea I would have suggested to Disney. However, I think it's honestly one of my favorite lands. It is so well done. My 4-year-old right now is super into Cars. We're watching it all the time. We're listening to the soundtracks in the car. She's just in a major Cars phase. So I've seen the videos a lot lately. And in looking at the details in Cars Land, looking back at my videos and pictures that I've taken in the land, it's crazy the detail that they get right in this land in Disney California Adventure. It's so cool to just walk through and check it out. But that's not all to see in Cars Land. There's plenty to do. There are 2 rides that have a 32-inch height requirement. Those are Mater's Junkyard Jamboree and Luigi's Rollickin' Roadsters. 32 inches, pretty much if your child's walking, they should be tall enough to ride. My 2-year-old was tall enough to ride those rides. They do jerk you around a little bit. The Mater ride goes around in circles, and then the Luigi ride is a trackless ride, and the cars kind of move all around in sync with the music. So it does jerk you around a little bit. With little kids, you'll want to hold on to them. But those are can't miss attractions. Neither of these rides are included in Lightning Lane, and they can get pretty packed the later the day goes on. So I would recommend trying to plan a morning during your Disneyland trip where you hit Cars Land pretty early in the morning. You might be there anyway if you're rope dropping Radiator Springs racers. You might be right around the corner if you're rope dropping web slingers in Avengers Campus. So wherever you are in the park, one morning I would plan on hitting those earlier rather than later. Which brings me to the 3rd ride in Cars Land is Radiator Springs Racers. This has a 40-inch height requirement, and it is Lightning Lane single pass. So you're paying a fee to buy a Lightning Lane just for that ride, and you'll have multiple times available that you can schedule the ride ahead of time, as opposed to Lightning Lane multi-pass where you get the time that you get. And again, if you're unfamiliar with Lightning Lanes, I do have a whole video on Disneyland Lightning Lane strategy. I'll link that up here. So Radiator Springs Racers, like I said, my daughter is super into cars. She meets the 40-inch height requirement. I took her on Radiator Springs Racers, and the first part of the ride is slow moving. It's actually, I believe, the same track as Test Track in Epcot. It's just a completely different theme. If you're familiar with Test Track in Epcot, the first part is pretty slow moving, and you see all the characters. You see Mater, you see Luigi, you see Ramon, and it takes you through the town of Radiator Springs. But then at the end, just like how Test Track is in Disney World, you test out your race car. So it puts you on this racetrack and you zoom around. Personally, my 4-year-old loved the first part. She was like amazed seeing all the characters. But then when it got to the fast part, she was like terrified. All in all, I don't know how much she really liked that ride. She definitely didn't want to do it again, which I don't think we would have done anyway because the Lightning Lane single pass, it's not something you're going to be buying every day. If you're wanting to try it with your child, just go into it knowing that it does get pretty fast. If you're thinking about doing rider swap, it's something that I would recommend maybe riding once. It's not something that I need to ride every time I'm in Disney, especially because you're paying the fee or you're rope dropping. Sometimes if the ride closes during the day, which happens pretty often, if you happen to be in the area, you can get into line quickly after it reopens and it goes pretty quickly. Also, they do have a single rider line that does move pretty quickly. So if you're not wanting to pay the Lightning Lane single pass for this ride, know that you can go through the single rider line and it still moves pretty fast. As far as food, Carsland also has some great options. Cozy Cone Motel is actually a food stop. It's a quick service, and each cone has a different theme for what is served there that has something to do with cones. The first one is churros, which I actually don't know how that is a cone. But then the second one is ice cream cones. They serve soft serve, and they have your traditional vanilla and chocolate, but they sometimes have a limited edition flavor. When I was there over the summer, they had matcha soft serve, which was so delicious. I still think about that soft serve. So good. So definitely check out and see what the special items are. The third cone is chili cone queso. They have mac and cheese in a bread cone, which is a great hit with toddlers. The fourth one is frozen cone concoctions, which is going to have margaritas and other frozen alcoholic beverages. The fifth one is pop cone, so a popcorn stand. Across from Cozy Cone is Flo's V8 Cafe. That's going to have your traditional diner food. It's nothing great, but it's going to have your traditional kid-friendly items like burgers and chicken tenders and fries. So if you're wanting to try something from Cozy Cone, but your kids aren't into that, you can always do both and just bring it into Flo's and eat there because it does have indoor seating. Our next stop around Disney California Adventure is San Fransokyo Square. This is another newly rethemed land in Disney California Adventure. It was originally designed after Fisherman's Wharf in San Francisco, but with the San Fransokyo retheme, it is now reimagined as the town of San Fransokyo in Big Hero 6. This does not have any attractions, but I do recommend stopping here for at least one meal because they have plenty of quick service options and there's going to be something for everyone. There's soup and bread bowls, there's burrito tacos, there's soba noodles, there's margaritas. Everyone can mobile order from a different restaurant and you can all sit together in the umbrella covered outdoor tables and eat together. So you can please everybody. There are a lot of more adventurous options, but with it being centrally located, you parents can get some things that are more adult friendly, like the burrito tacos, the soba noodles, and then get kids the more classic options. They do have a bakery tour, which does give you a free piece of sourdough bread. I personally haven't taken the time to do it, but if you're looking for a way to get indoors, if it's super hot, that's something that could be fun if you think it can hold your toddler's attention. They also have Ghirardelli's Soda Fountain and Chocolate Shop, which does have all kinds of ice cream, sundaes. What's also important about San Fransokyo Square to remember is that it is home to the Baby Care Center of Disney California Adventure Park. This is a great place to change diapers if you have kids that are still in diapers. Although every restroom that you walk into is going to have a changing table, the Baby Care Center has multiple tables available that are constantly cleaned after each changing. So it's a great place to stop if you are nearby. If you have a toddler who's potty training, they do have smaller toilets and sinks that are smaller sized, so a lot less intimidating for kids. They have high chairs available. They have nursing rooms that are private. If you run out of diaper wipes, diapers, more baby food, things that are more like toddler baby snack type things, you're not going to find in the gift shops, but you can find it in the baby center available for purchase. That is a great spot to keep in mind, know where it is, know you can stop there throughout the day. Across from San Fransokyo Square is an area called Performance Corridor. which is basically just home to what would be California wine country. There is a wine country trattoria, which is a sit-down restaurant that serves Italian fare. There's Sonoma Terrace that you can get quick service from. There is a Magic Key Terrace that is available, which is one of the perks of having an annual pass at Disneyland called the Magic Key. What's cool to note about this area is that you can reserve preferred seats for the parades in this performance corridor. For example, for the Pixar Pals parade that was over the summer, you can reserve a dessert package where they give you this box with all kinds of fun desserts, and then you have an actual seat in perfect view of the Pixar Pals cavalcade. This is nice because there are dessert parties that they will hold for the nighttime shows, but with toddlers, I know personally I never do the nighttime shows because we just don't make it that long in the day. So doing those reservations lets you still get that fun experience of having that front row seat, but it's during the afternoon. And the afternoon is also just a great time to sit down and relax and watch something. Next, we'll head over to Pixar Pier, which is going to have several attractions that you'll want to hit up. The first thing that you'll see when you walk into Pixar Pier from the San Fransokyo side is Lamplight Lounge. Highly recommend that for parents with toddlers. It's a sit-down restaurant, but it's casual. They did do some funky things with their menu, though. I talk about it in my dining guide video, so I'll link that here if you're interested in learning more about that, but I highly recommend that for toddler families. It's a great pick. This was originally called Paradise Pier, and it was themed after the boardwalk areas of Southern California. So walking through it, you see a lot of little food stands like corn dogs, ice cream, churros, cookies. And there's going to be your traditional boardwalk rides, but now that they have a Pixar theme, there's a little bit of a twist on them. There is a carousel, but it's Jesse's Critter Carousel from Toy Story. There is an arcade, but it's Toy Story Midway Mania, which is actually a virtual ride that you go through, but it is interactive and it's really fun for kids. There's a Ferris wheel called Pixar Pal Around. There's Emotional Whirlwind that's hot air balloons. So a lot of familiar type rides, but a Pixar twist on them. The only rides that have Lightning Lane are going to be Toy Story Midway Mania and Incredicoaster, which is the roller coaster. Toy Story Mania has no height requirement, and it does tend to fill up a little quickly, so I would recommend doing Lightning Lane for that one of the mornings, hitting that up first. What's nice about doing Toy Story Mania one morning is that you can do the Lightning Lane reservation for that and then hit up the rest of the rides that don't include Lightning Lane in the morning before the lines get too long. If you're wanting a rider swap ride that's actually worth taking the time to rider swap and do, it is Incredicoaster. Incredicoaster has a 48-inch height requirement, so it's probably not something that your toddler is going to be able to ride unless you have a particularly tall toddler. But if they are tall enough, I would still recommend making sure that they can really handle a roller coaster. But this is a great ride for parents to ride or swap. I just rode Incredicoaster for the first time this past time I went to Disneyland over the summer, and I was so pleasantly surprised by it. I feel like it's so underrated. It's just a great, smooth coaster. I just looked at it and it just reminded me of the like older rickety wooden coasters that we would ride as kids. So it just didn't look that fun to me, but it was so smooth, so fun, didn't make my stomach flip. I would highly recommend. It is included in Lightning Lane. Reservations tend to fill up like moderately quickly. If you reserve throughout the day, you can typically get a reservation that's about an hour ahead of time. So it just takes a little bit of planning, but pretty manageable. What I love for rider swap is that there is a pavilion right next to Incredicoaster where you can sit in the shade and watch everything on the water, watch the Pixar Pal Around Ferris wheel, and just hang out in the shade while your kids are sleeping. I also sat there and hung out for a few good hours when our 2-year-old was asleep in the stroller, but our 4-year-old was awake. My husband took just my 4-year-old on a few rides throughout Pixar Pier, and I hung out in the pavilion, and it is so peaceful just sitting there. So that's a nice quiet nap spot to keep in mind. So Pixar Pier is kind of a half re-theme. Once you get past Emotional Whirlwind, the Pixar theming stops, and it's still your typical boardwalk style rides, but it's not Pixar themed anymore. In Paradise Gardens Park, you're going to have Silly Symphony Swings, which is a 40-inch height requirement, and it's a classic boardwalk style ride of the swings that's been around. It's probably going to be a little scary for kids who are just meeting that 40-inch height requirement. It is not included in Lightning Lane Multipass, so you do have to wait in a standby queue for it. Goofy Sky School is a Wild Mouse style coaster. It's nothing revolutionary. It's just a classic boardwalk style mini coaster, I would call it, with a little bit of goofy theming. It is included in Lightning Lane Multipass. There's a 42-inch height requirement, and it's usually easy to get a Lightning Lane for it. There's never much of a delay in the return time, but that honestly has been a pass for us too. It's just nothing that you really need to hit. Jumpin' Jellyfish is another classic boardwalk style ride. It has jellyfish that kind of bob you up and down. There's a 40-inch height requirement. It's not included in Lightning Lane. My 4-year-old did ride it and was kind of scared of it, didn't love it. So think about how your kids do with higher rides and rides that will really bounce you up and down. Riding this ride, we knew to definitely not bother with Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout. So if you're kind of wavering between whether or not your child is ready for Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout with that elevator going up and down, Jumpin' Jellyfish is a good way to sort of test that out. And then Golden Zephyr is another classic boardwalk style ride. They are rocket ships that just spin around in a circle, no height requirement, never usually a long line. Right now I'm looking at the app and it's 5 minutes. This was actually our very first ride in Disneyland, and it was my younger daughter's very first Disney ride ever, so it's special for that. But it's a quick ride if you're just looking for something to fill time that you can usually get on pretty quickly, and it's fun for all ages. As far as food here, Corn Dog Castle is somewhere that we usually stop while we're at Disneyland. Gotta get the corn dog while you're at Disneyland. Corn Dog Castle is a great place to do that. There is also Boardwalk Pasta and Pizza and Paradise Garden Grill. If you have kids that are really into those type of foods and you happen to be in this area of the park, know it's there to stop. But personally, I think there's a lot of other great options in Disney California Adventure that I would stop at before those. One must-do ride in Paradise Gardens Park is the Little Mermaid Ariel's Undersea Adventure. This is a dark omnimover ride that takes you on a seashell through the entire story of the Little Mermaid. It's a little outdated, but it is very cute, and the kids love looking at all the fish, and there's a lot of like neon bright things to look at. So if you have littler toddlers or babies who maybe aren't familiar with the Little Mermaid, I'm sure they'll love just seeing all the fish and the sea creatures. This is included in Lightning Lane, and there's never a long return time. So this is a great Lightning Lane to grab at any point in the day. The line can get a little bit long for the Little Mermaid, so I would recommend grabbing a Lightning Lane for it. The other thing to note about Paradise Gardens Park is it is home to all of the festivals. So if you are in Disneyland while they're doing a festival, like the Food and Wine Festival in the spring, during Festival of the Holidays, during the winter holiday season, during Lunar New Year, those festival booths will be located in Paradise Gardens Park. Similar to how Epcot has festivals in Walt Disney World, Disney California Adventure hosts those type of festivals, and the booths are all in Paradise Gardens Park. The last land in Disney California Adventure that we haven't covered yet is Grizzly Peak. This is one of the few lands in Disney California Adventure that still has its California theming. It is themed after Northern California, the redwood trails, the forestry, gives kind of that national park vibe. The two attractions there are Grizzly River Run and Soarin'. This is a pretty classic river rapids ride. You're in circular rafts that go around and there's waterfalls, and you probably will get super wet on this ride. If you have been to Walt Disney World, it's pretty much the same thing as Kali River Rapids in Animal Kingdom. The theming is really beautiful, but I personally just hate wet rides. I don't like it, especially something where you're going to get that wet. It's not like Splash Mountain where, like, yeah, you get splashed. I mean, you can get soaked. So if you have kids that are really into that, no, that's there. It personally is always a skip for me. And if you do want to ride it, I do recommend wearing a poncho, rain jacket, having on shoes that you can change out of. You're going to get soaked. There's no way around it. What is really beautiful, though, is just walking through the trails and the bridges that walk through Grizzly River Run. If you're staying at Grand Californian, the entrance to the park it takes you right into Grizzly River Run. And there's this beautiful bridge with the rapids, and they have benches there that you can just kind of hang out. If you have a kid who's stroller napping, or you're trying to get them to stroller nap, this is a great place to kind of walk back and forth and let the sound of the water soothe them. It's just a very peaceful, quiet area. When my older daughter was riding Soarin' with my husband, I walked around here with my younger daughter, and it's just a beautiful place to hang out. If you're eating like an ice cream cone or sipping on a coffee, just have some time to kill. It's a great place to hang out. And speaking of Soarin', this is the second attraction that is in Grizzly Peak. It is the exact same carbon copy that is in the Land Pavilion in Epcot. Right now they're playing Soarin' Over the World. If you're not familiar, Soarin' is an immersive ride that makes you feel like you're parasailing. They have these big benches that lift you up, and then you're in a surround sphere style screen, and they spray scents up to you to give you the fully immersive experience. You're not that high off the ground, but because of the projections, it can feel like you're high off the ground. So for our 4-year-old, it was a little intense for her, and she didn't love it. So I kind of think about if your child is ready to ride it. It's a 40-inch height requirement. But just because your child is 40 inches, they might not exactly be ready for it. Something that is a must-do for your toddlers in Grizzly Peak is the Redwood Creek Challenge Trail. It is an outdoor playground, basically, that is a great spot for your little ones to run around, burn off some energy. In each park, you should absolutely scout out areas that your toddler can get out of the stroller, not be confined to like a seatbelt ride, and just get out, run around, burn off some energy. And the Redwood Creek Challenge Trail is a great place to do that. If you watched my Disneyland video, I talked about the Toontown playground in Disneyland Park. And so I think this is a great equivalent for that. Keep those two places in mind as you're going between the two parks. And also bear in mind that with the entrance to Grand Californian off of Grizzly Peak, you're not required to be a guest at the Grand Californian to use that entrance. So if you'd like to pop over and check the hotel out, you'd like to eat lunch or dinner at one of the restaurants in Grand Californian and then head back into Disney California Adventure Park, you can do that. In fact, Grand Californian actually has my by far favorite character meal, Storyteller's Cafe. So you can make a reservation for breakfast, lunch, or dinner at Storytellers Cafe and then go in and out of the park as you'd like without being a Grand Californian guest. I have an entire video on the Grand Californian Hotel and Spa. We stayed there during our last stay at Disneyland, so if you'd like to watch that, I'll link that. And that is your complete Disney California adventure guide for your toddlers. Everything you need to do and everything you need to skip. If you're not already, please hit that subscribe button so you never miss a video. If you found this video helpful, be sure to hit the like button so other families like you can get these Disneyland tips. And comment below with any Disneyland questions that you have. I do read every comment and take the time to respond to them. And I might even put a FAQ video together at the end of this Disneyland series. So leave a comment below and I'll be sure to get to it. And speaking of, this Disneyland series on YouTube will be wrapping up soon. But if you're looking for more Disneyland tips, fret not. I will always be talking all things Disneyland, Walt Disney World, and Disney Cruise Line on Instagram and TikTok. So if you're not following us on there yet, be sure to check it out. If you have not watched my Disneyland Park Land by Land guide, that's sort of the sister video to this one. So I will link that in this next screen for you. And if this is the first video that you're watching on my channel, I did an entire series on Disneyland. So I will link that playlist as well so you can go through and catch up on every video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!